What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge presented by BetMGM. I'm Katie Mox, filling in today for Sia. And it's been a while since I have joined the Early Edge family. It's my first time hosting, so be nice to me. I'm excited to be back in the universe, making some money with all of you. But before we get into the money that is about to be made, we must reflect on the past. And look, it honestly wasn't too bad. 3-2 yesterday. Prop stars suffered from a pretty bad beat there. Bagley, of course, getting out of the game. I believe he was up at 19, went out. Bad beat there for prop stars, but that is enough about the past. Let's welcome in the stars of the show. Time now to welcome in the Early Edge Cappers. And look, guys, you might as well fire up your BetMGM apps now because we've got buckets. We've got Tom Casale 10-1 on the Early Edge, only one loss for our guy, Tom. We got Griffin Carroll with some great NHL bets and Mike Barner on the NBA with good bets today. Guys, how are we doing? Buckets, I feel like I know you the best. Some of you have worked with before. Some of you have never met. Buckets, you're my guy. I know that you're trying to fill in the back. You're hoping to look like me someday, I think.
Hoping to look like you one day. The P.O. box is open. And Katie, I have 12 packages currently waiting there after a bad start to the whole P.O. box thing we're trying here. I think we're going to bounce back there, no problem. So I'm excited to eventually get all these shelves sold behind me.
I'm excited for you to get all those shelves found first. Although I was watching the show yesterday, and apparently you got some not safe for work items. So people, if you're bringing things into buckets, he works for SportsLine. He works for CBS. It's got to be kid friendly on this show. But looking forward to those unboxing videos. And buckets, we're going to start with you here. All right, 7-1 in your last 8 Champions League money line picks. But I know you well. And January's been hard. February got off to a bit of a slow start, but you said it last night. You got to celebrate your wins. You're coming off a 2-0 day. What do you got for us?
Well, that's a bit of a bummer that you brought up the Champions League victories because I'm not betting on the Champions League today because my Bayern Munich play first and foremost, and you should not trust them at all right now. Bayern Munich is in complete shambles. Thomas Tuchel is halfway out the door. The team doesn't want to perform for him. So be very careful on the Champions League because I will say that I think both the UCL games this afternoon will go under 2.5 goals. So that's not something I will ever bet on, but I can give out that advice. When I'm looking to find some value and some winning tickets, I'm actually focused on the English Championship today. So that second flight of English soccer. And I'm looking at the match between Ipswich Town and Bristol City. Right now, the championship is an absolute mess. Leicester City, who was 12 points ahead of everybody just last month, have now lost back-to-back matches. So they have opened this title race wide open once again. And Ipswich Town are one of these clubs that is taking advantage of this. Ipswich Town have now won their last 6 matches, and they are just dominating their opponents. 70 goals scored in 35 games. They have gone over 2.5 goals in 9 of their last 10 matches as well. This is a team that is firing on all cylinders, and as long as Leicester keeps losing, Ipswich will keep winning. I'm taking over 2.5 goals here at -110. I almost took Ipswich team total at -140, but Ipswich could score 3 or 4 here, so I'm going to get that juice down and just keep it easy, play the over. No questions asked. Let's go.
Let's go. And look, if you have questions for Buckets while we have them, please get that into the chat. But Buckets, I have to bring one thing up. You talked about having a little bit of a slow start to the year. Everybody has slow starts. Everybody has cold streaks. Anybody who say that they don't are absolute liars. You are a winner. I mean, anyone that's been rocking with you this entire time is up. However, when you get into a cold streak, how do you get out of it? Like, what is it that keeps you going? What's some advice for some people in the chat?
For me, there's a couple things I do. First of all, you have to have something outside of sports betting to take your mind kind of off of the losses. When I have a bad day, the first thing I do every single time is I take my dog and we go out for a walk. I get away from the screens. I get her outside. I just kind of shift my attention somewhere else. But the second thing is that I've been doing this long enough to know that long-term I am successful. So when I have bad days, I don't change a thing. I do the exact same thing tomorrow. If I go 0-8 tomorrow, I do the same thing the next day. And I keep doing what has been working long-term because I know, especially in soccer, it's a very volatile sport. You're going to have your ups and downs. But if you keep betting the way that you know works, eventually you will see long-term return.
Absolutely have to tail you on that advice. And yes, Sia has a different voice today, guys, and is actually female. I'm Katie Mox joining the show. Happy to be here with you guys. And look, if you want to tail Buckets as you should, You can make that bet or you can make any other bet. Go over to BetMGM. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and bet $150 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $5 and you will receive $150 instantly in bonus bets, regardless of your wager's outcome, with the bonus code EDGE150. That's EDGE150. We're going to take a quick break. Rock with us in a little bit.
Who's in? Who's out? Let the madness begin. The NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back to the Early Edge presented by BetMGM as we continue with the squad's best bet for Tuesday, March 5th. And guys, again, this is 10 a.m. Tuesday, March 5th. If you're not watching us live, which you absolutely should be, make sure that you check in with BetMGM or your book so that you're getting the best odds. Also, sign up at sportsline.com/join. You can use my promo code MOXIE for 60% off of your first month. That is where you're going to get the best value from our cappers. Okay, we're going to start on the ice here. Griffey, I'm going straight to you. Bit of a hot streak in NHL overs. You've cashed 2 in a row on sportsline.com. I thought maybe you'd take us there today. We'd have some more overs, but instead, you've got some interesting props for us.
I do. Hey, Katie. Nice to meet you. Glad to have you on today. Yes, so first play, I'll say it first, but then I would like to set the scene a little bit here. I'm doing Evan Rodriguez and Jack Roslovic, both to get 2 shots at plus 133. But to step back for a moment, I am having the most success in the shot prop market right now. When I go down the line a little bit, for lack of a better word, try to find some obscure names, either guys that aren't household names that have an elevated role, or maybe guys on teams' second or third lines. There are a lot of people right now in the NHL that are just on some unreal shot runs, and sportsbooks are not adjusting their prices. And maybe it's because they're not star players, not the notable names that people gravitate towards. But that's what's happening right now. And these 2 guys have been very kind to me for the last week. I had a big night last night with these guys, and they're playing again today. So it seems only right to pair them together. And, I do this. I'm curious, maybe we could talk about when I identify the beginning parts of a run and then it's very kind to me, I tend to just buckle up and matchups don't matter anymore. I just get on the ride until it crashes. And that's what I'm going to be doing here today. Rodriguez, 2+ shots in 12 of his last 15, 3+ in 7 of his last 9, 4+ in 3 straight. Roslovic has been awesome on Columbus's top line. He's got 2+ in 10 straight, 3+ in 8 of those games, 4+ in 4 of them. Both have great history too against these opponents, which is nice. 2+ here as a great foundational piece of plus 133. And yes, maybe I did bet them both to get 3. And yes, maybe I did also bet them both to get 4. Other play, going to Nashville here with Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg to each get a point at even money. If you're not able to do this, I think Nashville's team total is a solid play. Betting them to win in some fashion also. They've been absolutely rolling right now, and Montreal does not scare me. They're allowing 4.6 goals per game on the road last 45 days. I'm just going to go to 2 of the most consistent point producers here. Both have a point in 5 straight. Forsberg's got 7 in that stretch. Yossi's got 9. And then both love Montreal. Forsberg's got a point in 5 straight against them, 7 total. Yossi's got a point in 7 straight against them, 10 total. So that's just my small-minded play here at even money. But again, the team total also 3.5 is totally a play here.
I love that, Griffin. It's so interesting because Buckets told us what to do if you're on a cold streak. And then Griffey comes in here on a hot streak saying, ride the wagon until the wheels fall off. I love that. And again, why you should sign up for sportsline.com, because we give you those obscure player props that maybe you're not looking at. Maybe other sites aren't getting you. Griffey on a absolute heater here. So you're going to want to tail those, and great value, even money plus 133. Now we got to head over to the NCAA, and Tom, my God, Tom, 10-1 on the early edge, lost your very first bet. And tonight you're looking at Bama and Florida. Both of these teams coming off a tough loss on Saturday, right? Looking for some redemption. Now the Tide did beat the Gators at home, but this Bama team, Tom, just hasn't been the same on the road, not as efficient. Tight spread here under a basket. How do you see it?
Yeah, you hit it. Alabama's a different team on the road than at home, 5-4 away from home. They've beaten the average SEC teams on the road. They've lost to the good ones. I would put Florida just below that Tennessee, Kentucky line of good teams, Auburn. So when you look at this game, the first time they played in Alabama, I thought Florida was the better team on the floor. They led by 10 with 8 minutes to go. They kind of blew that game. It went into overtime. They lost by 5. But when you look at Alabama, what they do, they get almost 40% of their points from 3-point range. I mean, so when they're not hitting threes, that's when they get in trouble. And Florida really struggles at the rim. And that's not where Alabama's going to attack them, especially if they get down early on the road. Florida's a great offensive rebounding team. They had that edge in the first meeting. Where they struggled, surprisingly, was on the defensive rebounding side, where Alabama actually controlled the boards. I think that changes tonight. When this line opened, it was Florida plus 1.5. I thought the wrong team was favored. It's flipped to Florida minus 1.5. I think that's more about where it should be. But, I just think this is a good spot for Florida. Alabama coming off that emotional, tough loss at home to Tennessee. I think the Gators even up the score at home.
I love that pick, and I'm tailing with you. I do think that the Gators are going to get their revenge here. They've been dominant at home, winning, I believe, their last 5 in SEC play. Florida also 2-1 since that loss in Tuscaloosa. I see we got Danny Brasco in the chat. What's up, my guy? If you guys have UFC questions, make sure that you are funneling that into the chat for Danny as well. All right, Mikey, we got to get some NBA picks. And when I looked at yesterday, Kyle Kuzma and Taylor Hendricks did not play. Like, you had put your hard-earned money on them last night. But prior to that, you had 3 consecutive hits on player props. Again, guys, sportsline.com. Sign up. So who gets your hard-earned money tonight?
That was a heartbreaker for me yesterday. Hendricks got hurt, didn't play in the second half. Kuzma finished with 23 points. We needed 24. He missed 4 free throws. So I'm not a Kyle Kuzma fan today. But today we're going to go first up with Brandon Ingram over 21.5 points at minus 109. He enters this matchup having scored at least 30 points in back-to-back games. Going back a little bit further, he's got at least 22 points in 4 straight games. He's playing the Raptors. They are very shorthanded and missing 3 of their better defenders in Scotty Barnes, Bruce Brown Jr., and Jakob Poeltl. The last time he faced the Raptors, he only played 30 minutes. He scored 41 points. I do think there's some blowout potential here, but I do still like Ingram to go over 21.5 points. Then we're going to go with a former Raptor, and not rapper, he's a Raptor, and Pascal Siakam. He might be a rapper too, I don't know. But we're going to do Pascal Siakam over 6.5 rebounds at minus 111. Since joining the Pacers, he's averaging 6.9 rebounds over 21 games. Over his last 5 games, he's hauled in at least 8 rebounds 4 times. That included a 9-rebound performance against the Mavericks, who he's going to play again today. The Mavericks have allowed the 4th most rebounds per game in the league, so I expect Pascal Siakam to go over 6.5 rebounds in their rematch.
I love that. And I love him as a rapper. If you guys want to drop some Siakam rap names into the chat, I will definitely love reading some of those. And look, Mike, I got to tell you on this pick as well. Like you said, averaging around this number on the season. He's hit over this in 4 of his last 5 games. And against the Mavs, like you said, he's been cleaning up nearly 8 boards per game career versus the Mavs. So guys, let's take one more look at these best bets from our fellas. So we got buckets, Ipswich. Okay, look, I'm not a soccer girl, guys. Bristol City over 2.5 minus 110. You won 2 bets last night, people. Make sure you tail this one. You got Mikey on some props over there for the NBA. Tom only lost 1 bet with the early edge. You know we're riding with him on Florida plus 1.5. And look, he told you this line has flipped. Another reason to sign up for SportsLine and get the better value here. He got them at plus 1.5. And again, now that it's flipped to minus 1.5. And then we've got Griffin Carroll here with some obscure player props for the NHL. Absolutely love it, guys. Those are winners. We're going to get the maestro in here and talk some NBA conference tournament futures. But before we do, a quick word from our partners and we'll say goodbye to everybody. But Tom, thanks, fellas.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Welcome back to the Early Edge presented by BetMGM. I'm Katie Mox, filling in for Sia today, but don't worry, people. He's fine. He will be back on the Early Wedge later tonight. We got Tom Casale back with us here, and we are welcoming in the maestro, or as we called you in the beginning of the show, Lurkin' Larry, because you were just waiting to come on for your spot here today. We're going to talk some NCAA conference tournament futures. First up, guys, the Patriot League. Look, Colgate is the favorite here at minus 250. Some books minus 275. So we love this by BetMGM. You know, they're the favorite to punch their ticket here to the big dance. The Raiders, also the number 1 seed. Conference play there, 16-2. It's hard for me to find a reason to bet against Colgate. Tom, can you find a reason?
Not really. You know, Colgate's one of those teams that makes the tournament a lot and everybody likes them and they're overvalued. I usually bet against them. I will say this isn't a great Colgate team. This isn't a team we've seen the last couple of years that shoots the lights out. So could they get upset? Maybe. I don't see it here. I know the team Larry is going to talk about. Lehigh is the team I had ranked number 2 preseason in this league. They disappointed. And I know there's some love for them to win this tournament. If I didn't go Colgate, I would look at Lehigh or American. But the problem for me is I don't know. I just don't know how much value's there. Listen, value's great, but you have to win too. You know, last year in the NCAA tournament, I had great value on Creighton, 100-1. Lost. So you know what I mean? You don't win any money. I don't know. I think Colgate wins this tournament, gets into the big dance, and then I'll probably bet against them again.
That makes a lot of sense. And you bring up an interesting point, right? Because we always want to find value for everybody, but you're saying you still have to win. So even at minus 250, yeah, you don't want to lay that bet all the time. But if you feel strongly about it, what you're saying is it's not necessarily a bad bet to lay the big number sometimes.
Right. And this is it's a really down year for the Patriot League. These teams are pretty bad. So I would be surprised if Colgate didn't win this, but I think Larry's going in a different direction here. So we'll see what he has to say. Yeah,
Larry, talk to us about this plus 700 number, a lot more attractive.
Yeah, well, Colgate's won 3 straight, 4 of the last 5 tournaments. But like Tom said, they haven't been exactly dominant. And the team that I like, Lehigh, they had a bad year, 12-17, but 9-9 in the conference. And the key for me is one of their best players, Keith Higgins. He missed 9 games. And then he came back, and they went 5-2 down the stretch. They had a 3-point loss to Colgate. In fact, both of their losses to Colgate were by just 3 points, and Keith Higgins missed one of those games. This guy was averaging over 15 points a game, giving them a nice duo with Tyler Whitney-Sydney, who is first-team All-Patriot League guard. And it's interesting, since he's come back, he has not played more than 25 minutes. I'm not sure if they're going to unleash him in the tournament, if they were saving him a little bit. But down the stretch, their only losses were 3 points to Colgate and an overtime to BU. So I think this team has the ingredients at plus 700. They're getting it together. And like I said, they get a jolt from the addition of one of their best players.
2 good sides there. Again, not bad to follow a team that you think is going to win. It's not always a bad bet, but if you do think that they've got some value, then that plus 700 looks really good for Lehigh. Moving on here to the Sun Belt Conference, which tips off today at the Pensacola Bay Center. James Madison is currently favored to win this tournament, despite being the 2 seed. Appalachian State has the best record, and they beat James Madison twice in the regular season. Tom, should James Madison be favored here?
Well, if you're looking for a mid-major tournament to watch, if you haven't followed college basketball, I would suggest the Sun Belt, because both those teams, James Madison and Appalachian State, if they get into the tournament, those are teams that can win a game or two. James Madison won at Michigan State. Appalachian State beat Auburn. And when you watch those games, if you took the names off the front of the jerseys, you really wouldn't know who was who. They have athletes on both those teams. I like App State simply because they're not the favorites. If James Madison had better odds, I would probably go with them because I think these two are on a collision course to meet in the finals. But as you mentioned, App State beat them twice in the regular season, close games by 6 and 4. But listen, this is one I'm going to be watching with interest because on Selection Sunday, whichever one of these teams gets in is going to be dangerous against a higher seed. So I like the little bit of value here with App State not being the favorite.
Okay, taking a little bit of a different approach here. Larry, how do you see it?
Yeah, I agree. It's a two-team race, and James Madison had that great win over Michigan State, but App State, it has the better matchup with them. They beat them twice. They have a 6'9" guy, Epson, who had 12 blocks in those two games. They're just so hard to score on. 26 in the nation for defensive efficiency with App State. And you look at a conference like this, you don't expect to see names like that high up in the Ken Pom ranking. So I'm with Tom. Better odds. I'll take App State.
Okay, both guys on App State. Again, these are leans, not necessarily best bets. You won't find them on sportsline.com, so make sure you turn in here. If both the Maestro and Tom, who is just 10-1, like App State, then I'll tell you what, I'm go ahead and put my money on App State as well. Looking up next to the Horizon League tournament and these odds, you got Youngstown State as a favorite, plus 180, followed by Oakland at plus 250. You know, the Oakland Grizzlies, they were the number 1 seed. I see how this has switched up a little bit. Obviously, they were hoping not to suffer kind of the same thing that happened to Youngstown last year that got kicked out by Northern Kentucky. And speaking of Northern Kentucky, Tom, you like them?
Yeah, this is an interesting tournament, I think. Horizon can always get crazy because a lot of these teams are jumbled together. So the first game for Northern Kentucky is against Wright State on Thursday. I think the winner of that game is dangerous, but when you look at the odds, Wright State's plus 300 and Northern Kentucky's plus 1,400. Wright State beat them twice in the regular season. They were both close, competitive, high-scoring games. But Northern Kentucky tends to get better as the season goes on, and the same thing this year. They've been better late in the year. I think if they can slow down the game against Wright State a little bit on Thursday and steal that win, they're going to be a tough out in the tournament. So I like both those teams, but Wright State being plus 300 and Northern Kentucky being plus 1,400, then I lean Northern Kentucky as the best bet in this tournament.
Do you agree, Larry, or where are you taking us?
I'm going to go the other way. I mean, Wright State beat Northern Kentucky twice, and they do face them in the opening round. This team, they lead the country in shooting at 53%. 5 guys scoring 12 or more points per game, including Trey Calvin, who got them to the tournament 2 years ago with a beautiful jumper from around the foul line with about 10 seconds left to beat Northern Kentucky. So I just think Wright State, they're just so explosive right now. 87 points per game in their last 5. They've won 4 of those 5. They're hot and they can score. So I'm going to take the Raiders at plus 300.
All right, some differing takes there. Solid analysis from both of our guys. Guys, remember to like and subscribe to the Sportsline YouTube page. And don't forget to tune into the Early Wedge, the Arnold Palmer Invitational Preview. That's tonight at 7 p.m. And Sia will be back. It is here live on this channel, 7 p.m., the Early Wedge. Excuse me. You're not going to want to miss that one. And guys, that is it for today. It's all the damage that we can do. So for Buckets and Mikey and Griffey and Tom and Larry, who I like to call now very lovingly Lurking Larry, even though he is the maestro, I'm Katie Mox. This was the Early Edge. Good luck with your bets.